Alright everyone, welcome back to the channel. Just wanted to do another quick video today. This one is going to be a little different. This is going to be about making a campaign. So normally I put up a video about a minor aspect of Roll20. This is going to be about just sort of a quick build of just a starting campaign, starting location, the very bare basics you need to jump in and get started. So as you can see, first of all, I am not on my DM account. This is just my player account that I use to sort of fix issues and test things. So I'm just going to be using that to show what it looks like if you just sort of start with nothing. So this is a game that I'm currently in, but if I wanted to create a new game, up here to the right, you'll see a big blue icon for create new game. So I'm going to create a new game as the DM. Alright, so I'm going into my new game. I'm going to start with a name for my game, so we'll call it Gametopia, and I'm ready to create a game basically. Couple of the things I might want to do is I want to choose a character sheet. This is it'll look a little bit confusing because there's so many. It's really not too bad. You just need to know what system you're playing in. For this game, let's see, why don't we do Dungeons and Dragons 5.0, and it's usually down here. Let's see if we can find it. And we want the 5 OGL. If you can get it, it's definitely what I would recommend. Let's see. Alright, let's do the Roll20 one. Perfect, that's exactly what we want. If you're familiar with Dungeons and Dragons, that's our old friend, the character sheet. And we can add more players, but we'll get to that in another video. For now, let's just get started on what the DM is going to do. So here is the game page. As you can see over here, we can invite players. If I know my players' email addresses, I'll fire them in here. If I'm on a text with my friends, I'll shoot this out as a text to all of my friends, and they can just join that way if I don't really care who's coming in. Down here, we can post forum topics if you have the kind of friends that like to talk about stuff off game. You can adjust some settings for your game. I might get that into that in a different topic. We can begin your game here, and of course you can actually just drop images to use as a kind of title card. And then over here you can post a description for the session that's coming up. Let's just jump feet first in and launch the game. This will take a second as it populates a brand new game. I'm just going to close this tutorial thing because we're not really going to use it. Let's close that too. Okay, so generally speaking, when you're starting a game of Dungeons & Dragons, the first thing you need is for your characters to fall into the story, meet each other. You might have your characters just start off knowing each other in this world. I'm going to drop this down so you can see the maps that we have. Currently, we have no maps whatsoever. If I want to create a new map, I'll go here and it'll pop up a new map. Over here, we have map options. So I'm going to switch around a few things. I'm going to switch the background colors. That's helpful for me sometimes. We don't have any of the extra features enabled over here, so you won't see any of that stuff. Okay, that's a little bit better. And so now we're going to get a background that we're going to use. I'm going to use one that I just found online. So let's go to our old friend Google, and why don't we pop up Roll20 town. Nothing fancy. Okay, so we have a lot of options. And I'm just going to grab up one of the ones that I see here. And why don't we just grab this guy? Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. So you can see that's some pretty basic map. You can see there's an entrance, several entrances and exits. So this is going to be a small town, and we have an area we can set up as maybe a tavern with some benches, or maybe an inn where they can go to sleep. And a few of these we can use for shops and whatnot. It's a pretty versatile setup that we have here. Why don't we bring this into the game? And there's a couple of different ways you can do that. You can go to your art library over here, and you can import them that way. Or I believe since the most recent updates, Roll20 also just allows for drag and drop. So why don't we try that out as soon as that loads? Okay, that's just taking a second. I will talk about free assets in a second. I'm going to drag the map into Roll20 real quick. And the next thing we're going to do is we need to fix the size of the map, because it's going to be a little bit big probably, or it might be too small. It really depends on the map that you're uploading. This one's also taking a second. Perfect. Okay, so we see we have the map over here, and if we zoom in a bit, we can see that it's probably on the small side because each of these squares is going to represent a 5-foot area, and that's roughly how much space your character is going to be taking up. Not quite, but when you see a road like this, you're going to want that road to be about 10-ish feet. So there's a couple of things you can do. You can just literally drag the size of the map and adjust it till you get to the point. I find most of them are built into the resolution that you want. So if you look up the actual map in whatever system you're using, you can usually get the dimensions of it. So this one is 2800 by 2800. Let's try that out. I haven't actually tested this, so hopefully this works out. You can go to Advanced and Set Dimensions. Let's give that a shot. I'm really hoping this works out. Okay, let's see how that looks now. This might be so large that we might need to reset the size of the Roll20 setup, but we can do that pretty easily. So let's take a look. So the road here is 1, 2, 3, 4. It's about 20 feet wide. So that's actually it's not bad, but maybe we might want to make that a little bit smaller. Let's take a look at a few things we can do to make it easier to visualize. We're going to go over here, we're going to go to the line, the grid opacity, and we're going to pick a color that's really easy to see, and we're going to increase the opacity. And now if we set this to the map layer, yeah, so now you get a pretty good idea of how big the world that you're creating is. And so you want to imagine each square is about a 5-foot space, so you're going to say that barrel is probably smaller than 5 feet. And so so imagine if this is a bed, that's a pretty enormous bed, but it's not ridiculously large. We could probably work with this. So why don't we try that out? I'm just going to open up my page settings. I'm just going to increase the size. If you make the map a little too large, it can get to be a bit of a problem for Roll20, but it can accommodate a 50 by 50 map without too much difficulty. We probably go a little bigger than that too if we really want. No, okay, so as you can see, that worked out pretty well. So I'm going to go over here into my background tool, and we can move the map around a bit. And as you can see now, we have a pretty good starting map for our players to use. So the next thing that we want to do is to maybe make it look like a lived-in city. To do that, we need some city folk. So if we go over here, when you start with Roll20, you get a bunch of free generated character assets. They update with some frequency, so I haven't seen them in a little bit, but as you can see, we got some pretty basic starter avatars that we can use to make the city feel like it has some people in it. So let's try and see if we can find something that has, usually they have one that just says townfolk or nobles and townsfolk. Perfect. So number 10 over here. So as you can see, we have some people that don't look like fighters or anything like that, and it's just as simple as dragging them onto the screen. The only thing I'm going to do first is I'm going to go to my token layer, so objects and tokens, and I'm just going to start throwing down a couple of people. What I usually like to do is I'll make a little palette down here. So let's grab a barmaid, populate in, noble, a small child, of course the laborer, the blacksmith. And now to just make the town feel a little more realistic, we'll just take these guys and we're just gonna copy paste them into the town. So let's put a guy sweeping up in a few places. We can grab the blacksmith. Obviously he'll be working somewhere, so let's put him maybe over here. And then let's get the rest of these guys into position. And these will just represent some characters that your players can talk to in this world, so it doesn't just feel like a ghost town as they're walking around and they have a place to go. Now obviously when you're making your game, you can choose more than just 5 avatars to work with. You can put them in with a little more detail, and you can use, I like to use a different avatar for each individual person, so this is just sort of repeating ones, but you can sort of, we're just doing a really basic build over here. Alright, so you have your map, you have your NPCs, when you players are invited to your game, you'll be able to load them into here. Let's see some other stuff that we can do. Another great thing you can do is you can make handouts. So let's go over here to handouts. And so what these are is basically notes that you can pop up on the screen and to show to your players, and it's helpful for just communicating information to them. So for example, if we wanted to, a very common thing you might have when you come into a town is your players will want to go to the local tavern, probably get a drink. So why don't we do the tavern inn, and it'll be in all players' journals usually. And so you'll just choose like a title image. I'm just going to grab anything. It might not necessarily be on theme or anything like that. Let's see if there's anything we can find very quickly. Alright, let's just use that for now. So you can choose a picture of an inn or something like that that you can show to your players. It'll pop up over here. And then down below you can just write in the cost of things. So if there's ale, you can say ale 14 copper pieces, beer 10 copper pieces, or a one night stay will be 1 gold, let's say, so 1 gold piece. And when you pop that out to your players, they will basically be able to see all that, and it'll be like a little menu, and it'll be information that they can access on their own. This also works great if the town is selling weapons or items or anything else like that, and even if you just want to put some plot related information out to them. And so the players will be able to move themselves around the board. You won't need to worry about that. You'll just have to worry about what it is that they can sort of see and interact with. Let's see if we can do that real quick. So on my DM account, I think I have a video up showing how you can use the dynamic lighting feature, which lets the players have a light radius that can represent the torch that they have lit or something like that. So here we are on my basic account, my player account, so we don't have access to any of that, but that's good. It'll give us a chance to show what you can do if you don't have the premium account. And you can use this even if you have the premium account. So we'll go to Fog of War. And you wouldn't necessarily always do this in a level like this where you have a tavern. Usually in a tavern situation like this, you might just let the players see the entire level. It might not add a whole lot to the game if there's that air of mystery about not being able to see things, but this principle will work even if you have a dungeon. So why don't we hit Fog of War, and what this is going to do is that this is going to gray out everything. As you can see, everything just got a little dim. And now when the players enter the field, all they're going to see is a black screen that goes on forever. And that's all they're going to see until you reveal an area to them. So why don't we use this icon here? I'm going to zoom in a bit. We'll use this icon to represent our player characters. So our player characters will enter into the town from the east or left, whatever you prefer. And as they enter in, the DM will basically use this tool to map out how far they can see, and you can see that area became nice and bright. And this will be literally everything that the players in the group can visualize. And you can just drag this tool around, and it'll just open up more and more of what they can see visually. Now the important thing to remember in Fog of War is that they can see through buildings. So if I open up this area here, they can just see straight through this wall. So usually what I would do in a situation like this is I would basically clear up an area through half of a wall. And so now the players can clearly see that there's a concrete wall over here, but they cannot see anything on the other side. And as the player moves about, if they see that there's an entrance over here, and then they choose to walk into the building, you go over to your reveal tool, and then normally I would just reveal the entire room up into the concrete wall so that the players can clearly see that there's a barrier there. And so then that basically creates your world. As players move around, you open up more and more areas for them to see, and they'll only be able to see the areas that that you're willing to show them. Last thing is that you obviously can't just have one map as your entire world. a player may choose to leave the town at some point, so I'm just going to move the player down here to the southernmost portion of the town. And if they're walking out of the town, you have a place for them to go. And I'm going to make the entire map now. I'm just going to demonstrate how you can move players between maps. So if this is my second map, if this is a forested pathway to the next town, or if they're just going to jump straight to the next dungeon, wherever it is that the players are going, you're just going to grab the player's ribbon over here, and you're going to transfer it over to the next map, and that will actually move the players into the next map. This is going to be a blank screen, but so the players will actually be wherever this red ribbon is. Sometimes you may have a situation in which you want players to be in separate maps. I'll make a separate video maybe to detail that, but just a quick version of that is you would drag the player's name from down here into the individual map. Now you can see the player's icon, and now represented up here, will mean that this player that you dragged up to this separate map is on this map, and all other players are on this map. To bring all players back to the same map, you just drag over the ribbon icon and the player icon, and now everyone is back together. So I think that covers pretty much everything you need to get started. A lot of DMs won't have their players have a fight just as they start off, but often there's a lot of good reasons to do that. But for setting up monsters and enemies, I think I have a few other videos that we can look at for that. So again, thank you everyone for watching, and that's it.